Deep in the Amazon rainforest in the late 19th century, you could find paved cobblestones and electric streetlights. Cities built deep within the jungle grew so wealthy so quickly that they imported materials directly from Europe to construct massive opera houses. For a brief period, these remote outposts were among the wealthiest cities on Earth. This explosion of wealth was driven by a single scientific breakthrough. Charles Goodyear discovered how to vulcanize natural rubber, which paved the way for the invention of the inflatable tire. Suddenly, the industrializing world needed immense quantities of rubber to keep moving, and at the time, the Amazon basin was the only place on the planet to source the natural latex required to make it. But the Amazon is a lethal, impenetrable environment where traditional farming is nearly impossible. So how did anyone manage to extract enough rubber to build entire European cities in the middle of the jungle? To find the answer, you must leave the glowing streets behind, traveling deep into the lawless extraction zones of the Putumayo River Basin. Native rubber trees could not be farmed in dense rows without leaf blight wiping out the crop. Viable trees remained scattered across millions of acres. Extracting latex meant relying on a mobile human workforce to hike miles through thick jungle to tap isolated trunks. Entrepreneurs, known today as rubber barons, recognized that whoever controlled this massive labor force controlled the global rubber supply. Men like Julio Cesar Arana seized vast territories to monopolize the scattered resource. To acquire their workers, the barons launched brutal slave raids. Adult indigenous men were routinely executed on the spot, allowing the militias to capture women and children to serve as a compliant workforce. Those who survived the initial raids were trapped through a legal system of debt bondage called enganche. Workers were forced to buy basic survival supplies from the company at highly inflated prices, guaranteeing they could never financially pay off what they owed. The rubber barons could not conquer the Amazon's ecology to farm the trees efficiently, so they chose to cultivate terror and conquer the native people instead. The companies engineered mass death through a simple corporate incentive structure. Station managers were paid commissions based strictly on the raw weight of rubber their native workers brought in. If an indigenous worker failed to meet these impossible weight targets, the punishment was immediate. Missing a quota meant systematic starvation, brutal, merciless flagellation, or immediate execution. Managers frequently utilized a physical torture device known as the sapo. Victims were locked into the heavy wooden stockade to painfully restrict their limbs, left to starve to death as a warning. But the psychological terror went even deeper. The companies groomed young indigenous boys, arming them with rifles to act as a private, corporate militia. These brainwashed youths, called muchachos de confianza, were forced to act as brutal enforcers and executioners against their own families and communities. Every brick of those European opera houses and every glowing streetlight in the Amazon was paid for directly with the severed limbs, the mass starvation, and the cultural annihilation of the Putumayo indigenous nations. This extraction empire generated staggering profits, but it was incredibly fragile. It relied entirely on absolute terror rather than agricultural efficiency. The geographic monopoly finally broke when a British explorer named Henry Wickham successfully smuggled 70,000 rubber tree seeds out of Brazil. These stolen seeds were planted across colonies in Asia. Because the deadly Amazonian leaf blight did not exist in Asia, these colonies could safely grow rubber trees in dense, highly efficient, and easily accessible rows. Highly efficient Asian rubber quickly flooded the global market. Prices plummeted, and the terror-based monopoly in the Amazon collapsed overnight. The barons abruptly abandoned their operations. They left their lavish cities behind, allowing their European mansions to rot and be swallowed by the encroaching jungle. The immense financial wealth of the rubber boom evaporated, but the genocide committed to extract it left permanent scars, laying bare the horrific human cost the world was willing to accept for a smoother ride into the modern industrial age.